What if your relationship with your significant other, girlfriend, boyfriend, whoever it is, right, was a compliment rather than a completion, right? A lot of people approach relationships from the standpoint of looking for somebody else for everything, right? They look to somebody else to complete them, which means that they're actually coming from a place of lack. The main theme of this video is to recognize that the healthiest relationships are the ones that are more balanced and where you don't actually look to the other person to complete you, right? You don't offload all of this responsibility onto another person to make you happy and to maybe even like fulfill insecurities for you, right? A lot of people actually enter relationships because they base their self-worth externally, right, extrinsically off of another person. And so the fascinating thing is that all of this work that I've done, all of the healing that I'm doing, right, what I'm recognizing is that relationships where you are not offloading all of this responsibility onto another person to fulfill these things that you can actually give yourself create healthier dynamics and actually free up a lot more space in the relationship for other things to take place, right? Relationships where you don't look to another person to fulfill everything for you are actually healthier and more sustainable, and there's more space to discover other dynamics that could actually enhance the relationship and make it even better, right? It's wild because I've been in relationships myself where, I was expected to make the other person happy, right? One of the most important things that you can do for yourself before you get into a relationship with a significant other is to get happy with yourself, right? And to not look to somebody else to make you happy, right? It's really important to understand that when you create your own happiness, when you give yourself what it is that you're looking for out there in other people, you completely transform the entire dynamic of how you are experienced as an individual, right? I don't mean to sound indecent when I say this, but I can imagine that a lot of people wouldn't want to be with somebody that is unhappy, right? Unless that is like a childhood familiar dynamic where that's just the way that you've learned that relationships are supposed to be, right? It's totally different when you realize that if you get happy first, right? If you actually do the work to understand what it is that you want and you take care of your own insecurities and don't seek somebody else to do it for you, you will transform how you are experienced as an individual, right? And that's the reality of it. By the way, in terms of lighting, I'm filming outside, obviously. I'm traveling right now, and I figured it'd be nice to film outside. So I apologize for the somewhat of inconsistent lighting. It's beautiful behind me. It is hot as hell out here, but I'm having a great time. Um, when you don't look to somebody else to make you happy, but instead you recognize that your happiness is your own responsibility, the way that you are experienced as an individual completely transforms. And it's wild how different it is, right? When you don't look to other people to make you happy and you take that all on yourself. Don't get me wrong, it's great to, find other people that are happy and to experience moments of happiness with them. I'm not saying to avoid the experiences with other people. What I'm saying is that you will have better experiences with people when you get happy first, right? And then not only that, but you don't put somebody else in the responsibility of being everything to you. Like, that's actually a really exhausting dynamic, right? If you're everything for somebody, then, I mean, you probably even have less time and space to yourself, right? They rely on you for absolutely everything, including things that are really actually not healthy to rely on you for, right? Things like fulfilling your own insecurities, all these dynamics where you need constant reassurance, you need all of this, that, and the other, right? It's not healthy and it's not helpful, right? When you take care of your own insecurities, when you recognize your self-worth as intrinsic and you don't require yourself to tie to anything out there, you become wildly attractive. That's just the reality of it. The more you give yourself on the inside, that the less you seek for out there, the more attractive you become, right? And then the better dynamic it becomes with other people because you're not putting this burdensome weight of all of that on other people, right? And that's really the most important part about it. It's important to recognize that you can give yourself so much more than you have been previously. And you've likely been conditioned into believing that, relationships are about being everything to somebody or somebody being everything to you. The more space and the less responsibility you put on people, the healthier it becomes. Now, don't get me wrong, there are people that are not at all used to that dynamic. There are people that are entirely used to being everything to somebody, right? I would say that it's unhealthy. And I would say that the less responsibility you offload onto other people, the healthier the healthier your relationships are going to be, the more space is going to be created, the more space between self and other is going to be created, the more space to discover what it is that you actually want to create between you two. This is really a matter of space, right? Have you ever been in a relationship where you feel fucking suffocated because you feel like the other person is offloading all of this responsibility on you, right? Like it's really important to take that into consideration and to look at that for what it is, because it happens all the time in unhealthy relationships where there's not enough space created between the people in terms of self and other and boundaries and responsibility. Suffocation happens, right? The relationship falls apart because they realize that they don't have enough time to themselves. They realize that they're being made to do all these things that they don't even want to do, right? And it might be familiar and comfortable to childhood, which is why they're actually there, right? It's really important to understand that. A lot of people are in unhealthy relationships because the dynamics of the relationship remind them of their unstable, fucked up childhood, right? But something that I've been looking at a lot more recently is recognizing what it is that I want to do for myself and recognizing what it is that I would look for somebody else to do with me. Healthy relationships are where the other person complements you. It's not about the other person completing you. It's not about the other person being everything to you, right? Because the fascinating thing is that if somebody is everything to you, this is rooted in emotional immaturity, right? Specifically, infancy, all or nothing thinking. If somebody is everything to you, if you are everything to somebody, the likelihood that you are going to end up being nothing to them after a period of time is very high, right? This is that all or nothing dynamic that's rooted in infancy, right? So a lot of people have a very hard time dealing with this whole thing of like, they're very used to being everything to somebody, and that actually feels intoxicating for them, but they don't realize that what comes on the other side of that is ending up being nothing to them, right? Because if you're everything to somebody, then the likelihood that you're going to be nothing to them because everything goes way too deep, way too fucking fast is very high, which is why it's important to create space in your relationships to actually figure out what it is that you want, who it is that you are, how you can add value to another person's life, complement them, not complete them, not be everything to them, just complement them. Right? You're human. You don't need to be any more than human. You can't be any more than human, and you're also not anything less than human. You are just human. You don't need to be everything to somebody. Somebody doesn't need to be everything to you, right? It's just a matter of understanding the complementary dynamic in healthy relationships. In healthy relationships, there is a mutual back and forth give and take of complementation, right? In unhealthy relationships, there is the dynamic that you are everything. When I say everything, I literally mean everything to somebody, and somebody is also everything to you, right? And that also becomes a dynamic of codependency because then you might even get sucked out of other friend groups and other dynamics and other relationships that you have because you're so consumed by this one relationship. It's not a healthy dynamic. It's really not. And it's important to see that for what it is. It's important to understand what it means. It's important to see that because it's that extreme, it falls apart so extremely too. And this is what leads people into so many painful dynamics in relationships because they start off being everything. Right? If you meet somebody and then right off the bat, I mean, I don't know, days, a week, weeks, month, however long it takes, right? If you end up being everything to them, that is fucking red flag territory. And you need to understand that and stay clear of that because that means that the likelihood that you'll end up being nothing to them, which is the very painful opposite end of that, is likely to unfold, right? It's more so about complimenting somebody and somebody complimenting you. You don't need to spend every single, minute of your fucking life with them. They're allowed to have their own life. You're allowed to have your own life. Space can be created in the relationship, right? And that's the reality of the healthy dynamics, right? When you don't make your girlfriend or boyfriend everything to you. You allow them to have space to also develop themselves. A lot of people lose themselves in their relationships because they end up going into these extreme all or nothing dynamics where they're everything to somebody or somebody is everything to them. It's just not healthy, right? Allowing people to have space to develop themselves so that they don't lose themselves, right? And let me just end off with this. There are two extreme opposites, right? There is fear of abandonment, which is why people cling on to relationships and get really fucking close, right? And they kind of get like needy, this, that, and the other, right? And then there's fear of engulfment, the fear of getting too close. So there's the fear of being left and the fear of getting too close, right? Being right in the middle, that's why balance is important. That's why this all or nothing stuff fucks people up, right? Balance, being in the middle, having yourself, the other person having themselves, you guys understanding what it is that you're looking for in the relationship, coming together, creating beautiful moments and everything, but also having your own space to yourself to be yourself, right? That's the balance. That's the important dynamic. That's where the healthy relationship happens.